snow fell again that night. But this time, it did not feel like winter. It felt like a pause. A suspension of breath, as if the land itself was waiting to see which memory would survive until morning. Eira stood by her window, watching the world drown slowly in white. Her hands trembled, not from cold, but from something deeper, a feeling she could not name, but could no longer deny. Her father slept behind her, or perhaps sleep was the wrong word. It was a surrender. His body rested, but his exhaustion felt like it had roots buried somewhere beneath the forest floor. Beyond the wooden walls, at the edge of the trees, wolves stood sentry. Not one. Many. Their silhouettes were carved into the snowfall like warnings that did not need to speak. No growls. No snarls. No movement beyond breath. They were not hunting. They were waiting. Before sunrise, a storm of voices erupted through White Hollow. A royal messenger arrived, his horse shivering, his cloak soaked, his face pale with fear. His words cracked in the air like a whip. By decree of the imperial court, the northern forests are now property of the empire. Interference will be treated as treason. The beasts of the frontier are to be exterminated. Anyone aiding them will be charged accordingly. The silence that followed was worse than protest. The villagers' eyes filled not with anger, but with recognition. They understood then that this was no longer a conflict between man and beast. This was a conflict between memory and possession. Between land that remembered, and rulers who did not. The eldest woman of White Hollow, who had spoken little since the pact's unraveling began, stepped forward. She held an object wrapped in linen. A carved wooden sigil, time-worn, its edges softened by age and weather. A circle, with 3 lines inscribed inside it. A symbol older than the empire. Older than kingdoms. Older than maps. This was made by the first generation, the elder whispered. When hunger chased us north, we did not win against the land. We asked to live. And the land answered. Eira felt the sigil's surface as she held it. It did not glow. It did not shake. But it pulsed, like a heartbeat. A relic of an agreement no longer honored. That night, Yakut finally spoke the truth he had been carrying like a wound. I met them, he said, voice thin. Not the wolves. What they remember. He described eyes that were not human and not animal, something in between. Not a spirit, not a curse. Memory, shaped like a living thing. They do not kill for dominance, Yakut said. They take what must be paid when a debt is ignored. Eira asked the question she had been avoiding. What happens if the empire refuses to pay? Yakut stared at the floor. When a pact is broken, borders dissolve. And when borders dissolve, empires fall. He was not speaking in poetry. He was speaking in experience. On the 3rd night, the ground shook with hooves and iron. A second imperial convoy entered the frontier, this time with engineers, siege tools, and crates of oil for burning. They rode not to hunt wolves. They rode to the stone circle. To break the pact's foundation. To erase history. To enforce obedience where memory refused to kneel. Eira knew then, if the stones fell, the land's restraint would fall with them. And something older than wolves would wake without hesitation. Eira tied the sigil to her arm with cloth. Not like a weapon. Not like armor. Like a responsibility. Wolves walked with her as she left the village, not surrounding her, not guiding her, but matching her pace like companions who did not need language. Their silence was not threatening. It was respectful. They knew she had chosen. Or perhaps, she had simply been chosen. The imperial commander stood at the center of the ancient stones, torchlight dripping fire across snow. His sword was drawn. Soldiers spread around him, axes poised to destroy the monoliths that held the first pact's memory. This land belongs to the empire, the commander announced. This place is forbidden. And forbidden things have no right to exist. A gust of wind burst through the clearing, snuffing out torches. Snow whirled violently, but there was no storm, just force. A response. Eira stepped forward. The Empire cannot own what it does not understand. The commander scoffed. A child offers wisdom in place of law. Step aside. She didn't. She held up the sigil, and for the first time, the circle of stones seemed to breathe. Not magic. Pressure. A collective memory, exhaling. The wolves emerged. Not with teeth. Not with aggression. They simply stood. Between the soldiers and the stones. The commander raised his sword. The earth trembled. And the pact answered. A sound tore through the clearing, not a roar, not a cry, something like stone cracking underwater, like time bending, like memory speaking in a language made of wind. Swords slipped from hands. Armor shuddered. Torches died. Some soldiers fell to their knees. Some turned and fled without command. Those who lifted their eyes in challenge found themselves staring at their reflection in the wolves' gaze, and saw not fear, but insignificance. The commander stumbled back. "This is not real," he gasped. Eira stepped closer. Reality isn't threatened by the truth. Only lies are. The imperial forces did not leave the forest. The forest took them. No blood. No bodies. No screams. Only absence. History would record it as a disappearance. Rumor might call it punishment. But White Hollow would remember it as payment. A debt collected. When the Empire retreated, it did so quietly, not in defeat, but in confusion. White Hollow was no longer a frontier. It was a boundary no cartographer could cross. A line where empire stopped. And memory began. Eira did not return to her former life. She became something unnamed. A mediator. A reminder. A witness. Travelers claimed to see her walking the border, wolves at her side, not as guardians, but as companions who no longer needed to hide. Some insisted they saw two silhouettes where only one should have been. Others swore the snow around her never left footprints at all. The Empire remembered maps. But the land remembered promises. And in the end, promises last longer.